What's up, guys? Welcome to another Tuesday Tradesman Talk, Tool Talk, Contract
Tradesmen.
Conversation,
Yeah.
business stuff. So, want to go over some more updates. We got some topics we want to share with you guys, some thoughts that might help shape the way you approach your business, your goals, maybe even your next week if you currently own a business. But first is first. How'd your week go last week, Wilson?
Week was really solid last week. The shop had a good week last week. We started really, one of the challenges I think a lot of contractors have, and you and I have talked about this before, you really have to push in September and October to book up November and December, because closing somebody December 1st on the job, December 15th it's tough, right? Unless you find that magical person that has to have this done right before Christmas, it's a really tough thing to do. And so what we started doing is really pushing hard for filling up January. And so, went through some really cool, did some training with the guys to actually help increase those deals, how to actually lock those dates in. So we've got 4 confirmed on the books right now, which is solid. And we've got 3 more that are kind of in the ether saying, yeah, we definitely want to be in January, the first part of February. We're finishing up a project. So we're hoping to come back and have a really strong first week in January because, New Year's, new resolutions, new projects. And so we're working on making that push to scale that up. On a personal level, it was a great week, give or take our bathroom.
Yeah, you've been working on remodeling a house over there, right?
Yeah, we're remodeling a house. It's a lot of what I think inspired what I want to talk about today because I noticed that the floor was kind of depressing in this one spot, which it's not supposed to do. And so I was like, yeah, that's weird, but it's got vinyl over it. So, it's one of those things like, when you drop your phone, you don't want to pick it up because the screen might be cracked. You just throw it in your phone. You just want to leave it there. And so, as I'm bouncing on this thing, I'm just like, man, if I rip this up, I'm really embarking on whatever's under here. And so,
right.
I could not do it. So I rip it up, and the whole, probably a 4x4 area of the subfloor is just rotted out, just entirely rotted out. So I'm like, well, that's
got another fun project.
I got another fun project, and it's rotted out about 1.5 feet next to the tub. I don't even know. There's no real water going through here. There's not a pipe that goes under that I'm aware of. That would be a weird place for the pipe to go. So what's going on? So I rip up the wall behind the tub and I figure out what it is. The guy that installed it, instead of installing it the right way, when he noticed there was a leak, he wrapped a rag around it and then put another rag kind of next to it. And so with their powers,
that trick didn't work.
It worked well enough that we didn't notice for long enough for him to go out of business and not have to fix it.
The good old rag trick.
The good old rag trick. If you're listening, don't do it. And so other than that, and it's not a bad thing. I don't have a ton of experience with plumbing. And so this would be another cool thing for me to learn and master. I like solving problems, but I would prefer not to solve the problem by not having a problem in the first place.
For sure.
What about you, man? How was your week?
Well, speaking of problems, we'll kind of ride that wave. So I had a situation that has not happened before in my experience with my shops in Florida, nor all the shops we've set up around the country.
Oh, this is interesting. I don't remember last time you told me something new.
Yeah, I haven't told you about this. So I get a call. I was driving from Tampa to the Orlando shop, and I get a call from one of my guys like, "Hey, Steven, I don't know what to do." I'm like, "All right, well, what's the problem?"
Right.
He's like, "Well, you hear a fire truck pull up."
Uh-oh.
He's like, "There's a fire." I'm like, "What? What do you mean there's a fire?" I'm like, "You got it. You're joking with me, right?" Like, it's like, "No, the kitchen caught on fire."
How?
It's like I turned around, there were flames everywhere. It's like it turned in just a ball of smoke. I didn't know what to do. I pushed through the plastic on one of the cabinets. The flames were just chasing the walls where all the plastic was, and I grabbed a cup and I started putting out the fire with water. I was filling the cup up with the sink and just splashing it everywhere and stomping the stuff out. And I had put my respirator on and I eventually got the fire out. And I helped the homeowner get her and her elderly husband out, and the police or the fire department's here now. What should I do?
Holy crap.
Like, well, first off, are you all right?
Yeah. Check your vitals. Step one.
Yeah, like, are you good? Did you burn yourself at all? He's like, no, I don't know how I didn't get burned, but yeah, everything's good. Like, there's just a bunch of smoke stains. It looked like the fire was just burning the plastic and paper around. So it looked as if he said he flipped a light switch. And as soon as he flipped the light switch, he saw a big pop in one of the outlets that was covered with plastic, because we cover up the walls because we don't want them painted. And I guess that spark caught the plastic, and the flame just kind of like went through the plastic and caught and just was like chasing around the kitchen. And so fortunately, like, the walls didn't actually catch on fire. The ceiling didn't, like, it ended up sounding much worse than it actually was.
Oh yeah. I mean, that sounds incredibly lucky.
Oh yeah, my heart dropped. I'm like, all right, well, I'm glad cabinet startup's doing well. I'm gonna have to go full time into consulting. So,
you like send your insurance agent just like a nice, really happy Christmas card. Like, you're gonna love me.
I'm like, whatever you do, it was not your fault. Like you didn't do anything, right? He's like, no, I just flipped the switch and the socket blew up.
Right.
Like, all right, well.
Wonder if it was installed incorrectly in the first place.
Right. So the fire chief or inspector was there, and they were getting an electrician over there just to make sure there wasn't like a fire inside of the wall as well. But I think that spark just caught the plastic good enough because it was covered up. And
riddle me this: do you know if it was a GFCI outlet?
I didn't look close enough.
Yeah.
Sure. We do have a picture of it though. We have a picture of before and after, so it's very evident.
The worst before and after we've ever done.
Yeah, but fortunately the cabinets weren't damaged. The walls weren't. It's just a little bit of smoke stains.
Yeah,
so it just needs to be repainted.
Yeah,
but still, like, going through he was saying that as soon as the fire department showed up, 4 different restoration companies come pulling up too. They got the shit on satellite.
Just listening over the radio.
Yeah, they're listening to the police department, fire departments for this stuff. But
personal injury lawyer comes up right behind him. He's in a
exactly. I'm like, oh, geez.
Those guys can ride together and save some gas.
It's just a tour bus full of freaking, those type of companies.
Well, dude, it's a great example. The first you as an owner, the first thing you said is, well, are you okay? Right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's a great thing. And also a good thing for him to focus on, right? Because in your business,
he saved their house, bro.
Yeah.
He saved their house. It was an elderly couple, and they were like, are you all right? Or because, like, as the flames are going, they're like, should I call the fire department? He's like, yes, please.
They don't have a fire extinguisher under the kitchen sink.
I don't know.
It wouldn't matter. It's
on fire. Like, he put his hand through the fire to get the cup. So I mean, he was on straight adrenaline mode. But he's a Leo, and you know what they say about Leos, man. We just take charge of the situation and we do what we got to do.
Yeah. Wow.
So yeah, he definitely saved their house. So they're grateful for that.
Yeah.
Because if he just would have ran out there,
it would have definitely house would burn down for sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
So it was a pretty intense moment. But it does seem like we'll be able to still finish the job, which is
good.
And
I bet you guys get at least 1 5-star review out of that.
What's that?
I bet you get at least 1 5-star review out of that.
Yeah, I hope I get a 5-star review. The guys saved their house.
Right.
And the guys did a great job at documenting everything. We did not mess with any appliances because it was the socket behind the fridge, which we did not mess with. it was covered up with plastic. So it's not like it was a combustion fire, you know, from the primer or something.
You're right.
It was completely covered up with plastic. And so, you know, I'm not too worried about taking liability over it.
Right. Well, and phenomenal point, right? Like kind of like we were just talking about, the guys did what they were supposed to, right? They kept track of every single piece of the process so that when something does go wrong, you're covered. Because it sounds like this family was really cool, but
the homeowner even put a piece of tape on that socket, and we have a picture of it. And so that piece of tape is probably what caught first, and then caught the plastic, and then
yeah. Oh.
But yeah, they documented well. That's a big thing. I mean, it's an easy thing to overlook, and like you said, that's kind of what we're going to talk about, or cutting corners, or trying to use shortcuts in these projects. Whether you're a trade-based business or not, you probably have a standard way of doing things, and at the very least, you have reasons for the things that you do in your business. And if those things aren't done, then the results are not what you would hope for, and can often be what you don't expect. They could be surprises. And so documenting things is a huge one in our business. If you're a home service business, over communicating with your homeowners, documenting things either with pictures and video, can be a huge thing, and it can be a big difference between a homeowner blaming you for some damage that may or may not have been there before you even started the project. You know, if you don't have documentation, it becomes a he said, she said sort of situation. And if the homeowner has the leverage, meaning they still have a $3,000, $4,000+ check to write you, you know, they're going to deduct whatever they rationalize as fair. And
Yep.
so to document things properly can save you thousands, and over the years, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's a big thing that can easily be overlooked. I would like to say my guys are perfect at that. In the circumstance we just talked about, you know, he did do a great job, but you know, we like to document everything. Even if we go and do a touch up, we have a form that the homeowner signs acknowledging that we were there, what we did, and that we satisfied them in regarding the concern that they had, the reason why we were there. And we post that form into our platform, so we have that to reference in the future in case it becomes necessary. He didn't get that signed. So, you know, everyone makes mistakes, but we very well could get a call in 3 weeks saying your guy never showed up and he didn't fix this. I need you to come over now and do A, B, and C. You know, it would be nice to have something to prove that we were there and what we did.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, that's a big part of it. So, you know, the first thing is there's a standard operating procedure, right? Because I think most contractors understand, if you're like, man, what are all the things you should do, right? People have a long list, like, well, I should do this, I should do this, I should do this, I should do this. And at the end of the day, the reason why they aren't, or the reason why they choose not to, oftentimes doesn't make sense. And yeah, it's strange to me because, you know, I pick on contractors. I think we pick on contractors, and there's
we are contractors.
Yeah, there's a big reason for why we can, and that's because if you ask people, like, yeah, you've heard that, you know, a lot of contractors are untrustworthy, right? People are like, oh my God, have I got a story for you? Yes, you do. I have a story right now, literally destroyed 4 feet of my floor, and actually more than that, 4 by 4, but it doesn't matter. That destruction, right? The property damage, all of these problems, these horror stories that come from homeowners. Typically, it comes from somebody knowing, they know what they should do. This guy knew that the rag method was not an acceptable form of plumbing procedure.
He probably had an idea.
Yeah, like at some point he went, I hope he doesn't find out, right? Like
I doubt he complimented himself saying, I am so innovative.
Yeah. Changing the world. I can't wait to get this on YouTube. You know, it's one of those things, like, he knew what he was doing was wrong, right? He acted and made a decision to take a shortcut, probably because he didn't have the piece on hand, didn't want to drive all the way home and come back and not get paid for a little bit of time, right? Correct. Or, you know, with the documentation, like, you know, if you go back and do something from a homeowner, you should have them sign it. And if you don't know, you should know. We're telling you now, right? You should be documenting all these things. And if you're not, it's because you're allowing yourself to take a shortcut, either because feel too busy, or you're too rushed, or you're behind. Yeah. And those shortcuts, not only like, we'll take Trello as an example, right? We're tracking our projects on Trello. If somebody doesn't fill something out on Trello, the negative consequence of that is not necessarily experienced right now.
Exactly.
Whereas the negative feeling of I have to take an extra 5 minutes to do this is something you feel right now. And so you go, well, I'll just skip it this one time. You take this little shortcut. It's, nobody's going to know. What are the odds something goes wrong? And then something goes wrong.
Yeah.
And that little shortcut.
Someone discovers a dent in the fridge.
Mm-hmm.
But you didn't, the contractor may not have taken the time to look for pre-existing damage and taking pictures of that existing damage and notifying the homeowner of it. Stuff like that. I mean, it happens all the time and it's so avoidable, but you're exactly right. It's that immediate comparison of what's comfortable versus not comfortable. They're avoiding, some of these things that they might not realize is super important right now.
Yep.
But later on, they certainly can. And so for those of you that are listening that maybe are a part of an existing organization, I would love to remind you that, the policies that are in your business come with very good reason. And if it doesn't make sense to you,
ask the owner.
ask them, because there's a few things that could happen. And not all owners are like this, but I describe myself as pretty open-minded. Like, I want my guys to bring me better ideas. If what we're doing can be improved, I want to know. Or if we can add something to our protocol or to our systems, I want to know, because the more I help them, the more they help me, and the better off we all are. And so a lot of times the systems that are in place are to prevent costly mistakes. And with home services or contractors or tradespeople, a lot of times those mistakes, of course, will impact the business, but they will also directly impact the technician or the tradesperson that was providing that service at the job site. And so in a way, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot. If you're not doing the little things that can add up to big things.
Yep. Well, and for on the other side of that, for the people that are owners, and you're hearing this going, oh, well, I don't have that, right? That is something they should seriously be considering, because if you don't have a standard operating procedure, one, it's going to be really easy for you yourself to take shortcuts sometimes. And one thing that I find interesting is, when I talk to contractors, I have the contractors that make fun of other contractors with me, and then they're the guys that we're talking about. Like, those are our two groups. But even the contractors that, laugh at those guys with me, they're like, I would never take a shortcut in the work that I do.
Oh, they are. So somewhere.
But they do take shortcuts in their business.
Yeah.
And that's the part that's strange, because a lot of contractors don't put the same pride in the actual operational strength of their business as they do in the actual work that they do as a tradesperson. Yeah. And the way you do one thing should be the way you do all things. Like, if you're going to be a badass tradesperson, you should also run a badass business alongside of it, right?
Right. Or find someone that even if that's not your nature, to be super organized, or to be people friendly, or to be the type of manager that would benefit your business, you need to bring those skills to your business. Yeah. Whether you need to hire that person or incentivize the people in your business to take care of the things that need to be done. Because if they're not, then you're also, as the business owner, you're shooting yourself in the foot, and you're impacting everyone else involved, because those levels of support will make everyone's job easier. And that also brings obvious benefits.
Learn how to do it, or pay somebody that can show you how to do it, or pay somebody to do it for you. It's got to be one of
the quick response to this is, oh, well, I can't afford to bring someone on my team to manage. Well, then, okay, well, if you can accept the fact that someone managing can benefit your business, great. Well, maybe that's a problem down the road. So your immediate problem is, how can I afford it?
Yep.
How can we raise profits enough to where you can afford it?
Yep.
And then figure that out.
Well, and that's that solution, that problem solving little thing you just did right there is big in and of itself. It's like, oh, I can't afford it. Well, how can you? Right? Just that little switch goes a long way. And I think people could apply that same question to this issue of shortcuts. It's like, okay, well, how can I make sure that my business runs in a way that prevents people from wanting to take shortcuts? right? How can we set these checks in place that prevents either myself or someone else from taking shortcuts? So like, for a long time in my life, I kept my phone on the opposite side of the room when I set my alarm so that I couldn't hit snooze, right? How do you present yourself from taking a shortcut? Well, you make it so it's not an easy shortcut to take. By the time you're already over there, it doesn't make sense. And I think for a lot of people, being able to set that up in their own business is going to it makes an incremental change, right? Like when you stop taking these little shortcuts in your business, you don't notice the changes necessarily overnight. Just like the same way when people go on diets, it's not like, you start your diet day 1 and day 2, you got a 6-pack, right? But if you see somebody that's been strict in their diet in 6 months, you're like, holy crap, who's this human? Yeah. Your business very much works the same way. These compound effects from, I didn't lose $3,000 on that job because my guys took pictures, right? Or we didn't have to get this 1-star review because we had to put a lien out because this guy was saying that we did something that we didn't do, and all this drama that came with it. Being able to not take those shortcuts on an incremental basis will make a huge difference over time. We have to be able to step back and see that long-term picture.
For sure. And now that we kind of talked a little bit about the importance of this sort of mindset when it comes to not skipping steps or taking shortcuts or cutting corners, let's transition a little bit into how to implement this proper behavior. How these people can take this awareness and start implementing it into their business with their teams. Kind of the simple way to approach it is, positive reinforcement or negative reinforcement. But before you even get there, having clear instructions. So we touched on this a little bit earlier in the call, is having the SOPs. So if you don't have those SOPs.
What are SOPs, David?
Standard operating procedures. So you need to have a clear instruction or clear direction, clear guidance on what you want your people in your company to do for every role, really.
Yes.
You need to have, if you want your people to do things in a certain way, you need to explain that to them in a way that they can study and reference, so they're not relying on you repeating yourself over and over. And it's something that you can constantly reference if needed. You shouldn't have to constantly do it. You should really make it a staple in your onboarding process or during your training period when you hire them. Yeah. But you have that handbook of sorts that you can reference down the road, and every time you do bring someone on into your business. And then
what would you say to somebody that doesn't have any employees?
So you should still do that, because eventually you will have the need for employees unless you're completely happy with your business and how it's running and what, and the results and the fruits of your labor, and you're happy with that, then that's great. Everything we do in a way does gravitate towards our desire to be happy. And so if you're happy with your business and everything, then you're winning. Yeah. But most people can't say that. Most people can point to challenges in their business, and that challenge will have a solution, but that solution typically needs to be implemented in a concise or a specific way. And for you to discover the challenge, discover the solution, and then document the way to solve that challenge so that other people can do it, is super important, so that you can train people. And then when it comes to them potentially skipping corners or steps within that process, that's when you want to start talking about potential incentivizing them or ways to enforce behavior, whether it's positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, and then having a protocol for reviewing these sort of circumstances with your employees, and then also having an exit strategy. Some people just are not a good fit for the role. No matter how good instructions you give, no matter how well you communicate with them, some people just aren't meant, they're not going to be good for that role, or it's not worth your continued effort and time to force them to be good in that role. So you need to have a plan for when to cut your losses.
Well, one kind of interesting point that can come from that is when you put somebody in a role and you don't have any standard operating procedures, right? Essentially, you're dropping somebody into chaos and saying, please figure it out.
Exactly.
And then they don't succeed. It's easy to be like, oh, well, that person was the problem. But you'll see guys hire 3 or 4 people and every one of them fails, and they go, there's nobody good out there. Like, well, Man, if it's happened 4 times and
Yeah,
it's still a problem, it may be you,
could
right?
be.
Yeah, like if every one of your girlfriends is crazy, it may just be that you keep dating crazy people. It's like sometimes you're the issue. And I think standard operating procedures are a phenomenal tool for reducing that. Because if you have, hey, this is exactly what needs to happen, this is exactly how it's supposed to be done, and this is the order, way, shape, and fashion that occurs. When someone can't do it, it's very clear and very easy to say, okay, you're not a fit for the role. It's not that the role is overly confusing. It's not like all these pieces aren't clear. You're not being dropped off in chaos and expected to figure out. You had to follow instructions and you couldn't. And it makes letting someone go much easier because they're going to be aware they're not doing it.
Yeah, it's objective. It's very clear cut. There is no argument on whether they did it or not. It's literally a matter of did you do it or not.
Correct.
It's not a blurry situation.
The tough thing is it's something you have to take time for. And we talked about this 2 weeks ago with the
everyone I talk to hates creating these SOPs. They understand the value, they understand the importance, they commit to doing it, but it's a to-do item or project that kind of keeps getting pushed down the calendar. And to that, I would say
important, non-urgent. It's that category in the Eisenhower quadrant that just always gets left behind.
There's probably a few reasons for that. But I would say that if you are struggling to sit down and write all of this out, I bet you could speak it. I bet you could call someone and explain these things over the phone.
Yeah.
Maybe you should call someone who is good at sitting down and writing things out and just speak out what you want these people to do. So have a plan. Okay, maybe her name's Sarah and your friend Sarah is really organized. She has great handwriting or she types really fast. And, and she's willing to help you with this because you've talked about it for months and now she's getting frustrated that you're not doing it and it's not even her business. So maybe you tell Sarah, hey, how about I speak out these instructions or the way I need these things done, and would you mind helping me document it?
Yep.
And so schedule, a wine night with Sarah to where, limit yourself to 3 glasses, whatever. You need to have some clarity, but don't make it this super serious, unfun thing. It's something you can be excited for because this will help your business get to the next level. And so call Sarah and start with, who am I looking for when I hire?
Yep.
Start with the role that you feel you need to hire for first, whether it's labor, whether it's administrative, whether it's management or sales, and then have Sarah help you document the qualities that you're looking for in your new hire and maybe break down those steps. So first I'm going to post a job posting on LinkedIn or Indeed.com, and I'm going to schedule interviews with 3 people at a time.
Yeah.
And I'm going to use these set of questions to determine if I like them or not. Then the next step is this. The next step is that. They're going to train for X amount. They're going to do this during training. Break everything down step by step, and then do that for every part of your business, but just make it a conversation.
Yep.
Eventually after the first role, you'll pull up the computer, use a Google Doc. So you and Sarah can use the same doc and you can look it over and it just gets easier. But starting that momentum is the hardest for people. That procrastination just makes it into this big ordeal that never gets done.
Well, it's going back to that same thing. It's like you have to decide at some point and you have to commit and prioritize. Yep. And it really is just a decision. Like, I am going to spend time working, not just in my business, but on it. And
yep.
you have to commit to it and you have to do it. Like, you have to really master that muscle. And it is a muscle, right? Because dude, SOPs are so boring. It is so boring.
Most people, they are.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But a lot of stuff is boring. That's okay. Like, taking pleasure in the mundane, like, yes, this is boring, but it leads to me getting paid more.
Yeah.
And all the stuff you can do with the money is fun. Like, SOPs are boring. Jet skis are awesome. Yeah. Let's figure it out.
Yeah. So find a friend. If you guys are struggling to follow through with your own commitments, well, one, you should really look at that.
Yeah.
Because that lack of discipline will bleed into other areas of the business and your life. And so if you're struggling with documenting your SOPs, there's probably evidence of you struggling in other areas. So it's worth you kicking yourself in the butt or having Sarah motivate you a little bit. Find someone that can support you, whether it's your wife, your friend, your business partner. Make it a priority and get it done. The best thing, if you are a chronic procrastinator, the best thing to approach is just to do it. The next time you think about it, make some progress and just do it then and there. Because when you try to plan it and schedule it for someone who is prone to procrastinating, it almost doesn't really make progress.
The $100 bet. You bet your friend $100 it'll be done by X date, and be prepared.
Or a punch in the face.
Or a punch in the face. Tough. What would I prefer?
Avoid a punch in the face or lose $100. Some of you would pay $100 to not get punched in the face. So
yeah, that's true.
I
don't think my friends would punch me, but my friends would.
The stomach. That way, no
one's
concerned.
They'll take your $100 though. Count on that, right? Yeah. Find somebody trustworthy. Give them $100 and say, "You can't give this back to me until this is done. I'm willing to bet you'll sit down for an hour and you'll do the work." You can go on all kinds of, they have outsourcing tools, Fiverr, Odesk. You can go on those, and somebody will sit you down and ask you questions to help pull this stuff out. With all of these things, that's a paid option that works really well. Students giving you a free option that works really well. Like if you haven't done it yet, it's not because the capacity isn't there, the options don't exist. Again, it's about that priority decision.
Yeah. So having those protocols, those systems, those step-by-step guides, that all means the same thing. Whatever you want to describe it as, it's a specific way to do certain things.
Yes.
You need to have that all written out so you can train people properly from the beginning. And you don't want to just give it to them and tell them to study and now do your job perfectly. You're going to spend some time enforcing the habits that you need in your people. And so while you have them study it, you want to either, whether it's shadowing, whether it's some sort of training program where you're taking them through that manual, which all of these SOPs become, you group them all together, and that's what's called a manual.
Yep.
You run through that with them. And that way they can bring up questions or clarifications. And it'll also help you evolve that manual to be better, because if you're noticing questions about things or if they're needing clarification, then that's a clear opportunity to, make it a little bit more clear. And you don't want there to be a ton of questions if it's really good.
They will force you to improve it as they find places where it does not do well. One way I always like to think of it, this is a minor thing, but anytime making SOPs, I always like to think like, what is the trigger? What is the mechanism and what is the feedback, right? So like, what's going to cause the standard operating procedure to be it? And it might be something as simple as like, I'm done taping the kitchen. That's my trigger, right? I move on to the next thing. We're going to go get the gun. Like, what is the mechanism? How am I going to actually do it? Who is responsible? What is the process? But then also you want to have feedback, and that feedback may be, when somebody's done, they upload it to Trello, and then you as the owner can now check on that. Right? Because one, it gives you a way to make sure that the SOP is actually being done, which is super important as you're forming the habit and also as they're forming the habit. But two, going through the process of making all these SOPs and then not using them is, again, short.
It's one of the fundamentals of preventing your people from cutting corners. They need to know how not to cut corners.
Yes.
And so that's going to be crucial. And then reinforcing those habits with regular feedback is absolutely important, because that's what's going to be what instills the habits. If you are too laid back on what you need your people to do, and you allow them to cut corners because, like what we talked about, the ramifications aren't immediate, and you just let some of these things slide, it's going to get a lot harder down the road when you get a little bit more serious about people doing what they're supposed to do, because now you're all of a sudden becoming, this person that no one likes. So you want to set the expectations at the beginning when you first bring them on your team. And so it's super important. And then having that regular feedback. So checking whether it's a platform you guys use to track your projects, whether it's a sales board that your salespeople use to track their leads and appointments and conversions, whether it's your administrator on sending out invoices properly or scheduling appointments, or, every role in your business, you as the leader of that organization, part of your job is to observe everyone on a regular basis and then review with them. So even if they are doing a great job, this is something that some people struggle with as well. If you want to enforce or reinforce the positive habits, complimenting your people can be a hugely effective thing. Sometimes we get so focused on problem solving that we only notice the problems because that's what we're looking for. And so the good things aren't in our focus because we're tunnel visioned on the problem. And so scheduling regular reviews, whether it's monthly or at least quarterly, gives you that opportunity to fill them up spiritually. Because, everyone, just like everyone makes mistakes, everyone also avoids mistakes, and so that has to be acknowledged and appreciated as well. And every business owner does appreciate it. It's obviously not seen as a problem. And so it's
hard. Relationships have to be maintained,
Yeah, exactly. Relationships. That's going to be a huge thing to reinforce the relationship or those positive habits, the regular reviews and regular feedback, the good and the bad. It's going to be hugely important for that.
Well,
and that over time, if you do that collectively and you have that comprehensive approach, that is what builds the culture in your business. And once you have an actual culture, then the employees or the team start to enforce some of these things on your behalf, because that becomes the way things are done. And when people are not a part of the herd, they get exiled. And that can be good in your business if they're exiling people because they're not doing what they're supposed to do. It's going to help raise the flags and kind of give you a signal to look into the situation a little bit deeper.
Yep. Yeah. And it's funny because offhandedly, when you say that, the quarterly reviews, that is a standard operating procedure, right? That is another great example of that. But if you don't have it listed, you don't have it written out, it's easy not to do. And it's spot on. I think that's I think if somebody took the time to, again, step out of being in their business every day and actually implement just the stuff we talked about here today, like for the average contractor, you're talking about a massive change in their business. Like SOPs are one of the first things we work on when we consult with a client. It's like one of the very first things we look at, like, what is your process for this? And usually the answer is no, I don't have one. And, we've seen 20, 50% increases in 6 months because all of a sudden they're tracking, right?
It's the number one problem with trades-based businesses is the lack of systems. Yes. And when we say systems, we're using a bunch of words for the same thing. It's protocol, it's a guide, it's a step-by-step to do, it's a manual. All of these things mean the same thing. It's a specific way to do things in your business. If you have that documented for every part of your business, it will make your entire business so much easier. I promise.
100%. Yeah, I think that's I think that's a good thing to learn on, instead of listening anymore. Like, if you listen to this was 45 minutes. Go take the rest of the hour, take 15 more minutes, and go write down the SOPs for one thing that you do.
And here's a first step, because it is a pretty daunting. It becomes pretty thick. That's why when you see these manuals, they're pretty thick, because there's a lot of roles in your business, and there's also a lot of things that need to be done within each of those roles. So the first step, if you're looking for how do I get started, start with a Google Doc, or if you're old school, Microsoft Word, or if you're really, pen and paper, whatever, but categorize your roles. So what are the roles in your business? If it's just you, that's everything. And so how do you handle lead generation?
Marketing.
How do you handle your projects? Do you have a certain way that you do the service that you provide? And if you have a bunch of services, start with one.
Yeah.
This is going to be
the one that's easiest to outsource, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point.
That's or like when you're making SOPs in your business, start with the one you hate the most. Like, if you really hate like appointment setting, figure out the SOP and hire somebody to do it, because having that SOP is going to make hiring easier. And the more you can the more you can put the stuff you don't like in your business, and I rant on this all the time, when people are like, I want to find a business that just fulfills my purpose, that I'm passionate about and I love it. I'm like, dude, even if you find that business, you're going to have a bunch of stuff in that business that is banal and boring and you hate it.
Yeah.
The key to successfully, happily running a business is finding the stuff you don't like and paying someone else to do it.
Right.
This is the first step. Start with what you don't like, or start with what's easiest to outsource.
And break it up into categories. So every business has sales and marketing, they have service fulfillment,
Yep.
and they have business management. Those three categories. How do you bring in business? How do you fulfill on what your business provides, whether it's a product or service? And then how do you manage the operation?
Client acquisition, delivery, and systems. That's it.
Yeah. So start with those just three categories. And then within those categories, break it down. And you'll find that you'll keep breaking it down. But you want to have it, if your business is smaller, most of our businesses are pretty small. So it's not like 20 different job descriptions within the sales and marketing category. It's usually one person.
Yeah.
You know, and what can that one person do for your business? And if you're a one-man operation, that could be a part-time role.
Yep.
So maybe your sales and marketing person is a part-time person that hands out flyers in the neighborhoods once a week.
Which is a great way to get business.
Yeah, great way to get business nowadays. And that person also answers the phone and schedules appointments. That's
Yep.
the only thing they do, you know. And you'll find as time goes on and maybe you don't have that person yet, and so you hire them, when you start refining what they're actually doing, make sure you update those manuals, the systems, because you don't want to keep everything in your head, you know. So if you find that your sales and marketing person is doing 10 different things, make sure all of those things are in that system, because that person may leave later on.
Yep.
And you want to be able to train someone to do what they were doing well. And so if that's not documented, that's going to be very hard for you to do.
That is a phenomenal point. That's
so do the best you can with what's in your head.
Don't overthink it, take action.
As you start to take action, update those things, because you'll continuously learn. I mean, that's this game. It's a learning game, and it's an infinite game. It keeps going. So hopefully that got you guys value. We're actually scheduled for a group call that we got to jump on. But you know, like always, guys, feel free to send us an email, support@cabinetstartup.com. We actually started getting emails coming through asking questions, which is great. So feel free to send us your ideas or feedback. We're going to continue making these calls and bringing value to you guys. So hopefully you guys have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you guys same place, same time next one. Have a good night.